Alrighty, well, happy Monday. How are you? As soon as you tune on here, say hello. Definitely comment and share this video out. Today is day 24 of 30 Women, 30 Stories. Can you believe day 24? Don't forget that this Wednesday is our last day. I do have another interview later today, tomorrow, and Wednesday, and then we are done. Don't forget to subscribe to A Note for God on YouTube. I told you this before. What I like about that is that, number one, we are broadcasting live on YouTube, Periscope, and Facebook. But the great thing about subscribing to A Note for God is that you can always go back and rewatch the lives later, the interviews. You have 24 amazing testimonies, so definitely take a listen. If one of the ladies resonates with you, I always say definitely connect with them. Or if you're hearing a story and you know somebody's going through a similar situation, definitely share the link out from Facebook or YouTube. So if you're on here, say hello. How are you? Again, day 24. Can you believe it already? Again, Wednesday is our last day. We already have our guests here. We're going to start super early in the Pacific time, 8 a.m. Midwest and East Coast. I was gonna say West Coast. I'm in the West Coast. East Coast a little bit later, but here we are. We have Nakisha here today. She's also Pacific time, so it's early, but we gotta get it done. Perfect. The kids are not very nice, but like I always give my disclaimer. I have kids. They're gonna come in. It is what it is. Anyway.
It is what it is.
In their world, it's just about them, nobody else. They don't,
Right.
It is what it is.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for taking time this morning and coming on here and sharing your story. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's an honor. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, so we'll get right to it. Okay. Tell us a little bit about your background growing up.
Okay.
And then, and then what events led you what events really led you to really surrendering and giving your life to Christ? So we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Miss Sister Grace, for having me. I'm really excited to be here to share my testimony. The word tells us that through our testimonies, others can be saved, right, and edified. And so that's what I'm here to do. So it's definitely an honor to serve. So a little bit about me. I am from Sacramento, California. Born in 1975. I'm telling my age, right? But I think one of the most unique and dynamic things about my background and my upbringing is my mother was a teenage mother. She did not have to move forward and have me. She sacrificed a lot to bring me into this world. She was only 14 when she had me. Wow. She was 14 and my dad was 17. And my father was really adamant. He does not believe in abortion. And my mom's family was pretty much like, you don't need to have this baby, you need to figure it out. And she was really close to her father. And my grandfather at the time put a lot of distance between them when she was pregnant with me. So she and herself in her pregnancy, as I got older and did research, there was definitely a disconnect during, her pregnancy or the intro, vitro, or whatever was going on with me because of the things that she was experiencing because she decided to say yes. So I just want to thank my mother. I love you so much. Shout out to my mom. Shout out to my parents for moving forward and having me. I'm the firstborn in my family. So I'm the first grandchild on both sides of the family. I'm the first daughter to my brother and my two little sisters. So that came with a lot of responsibility that I later soon found out that was a bit unbearable. And that's part of the reason why I gave my life over to the Lord. When I was a teenager, so during my childhood, I did experience molestation from a close family member. Was that really kind of put me into a depression at such a young age? And put me in a space to where I always kept secrets, right? Because the person said that if you tell, I'm going to do this and this and that. So then not really having that safe adult to talk to. So I ended up I'm not confessing. I don't want to say that because I wasn't the one that was wrong, but I ended up telling an official at school. And that was like back in the 80s. And so it wasn't as, they weren't as aggressive and assertive with CPS and all that stuff. So they allowed my family to handle it internally. So, but then that's when the guilt started setting in, right? Well, I felt guilty because I told, and not having the really right counseling to move forward, and, you know, just create, there's no, I don't want to say that there's no real right way for one to heal from something like that.
Correct.
So you know what I mean? So in that space, I just, you know, I withdrew. I started holding things in. And then when I got old enough and got cute enough to be a teenager, you know, I started doing things I had no business doing, smoking, drinking, being very promiscuous, skipping school. I think I skipped school for maybe a whole year.
Oh, wow.
I graduated a year late. Yeah, I graduated a year late from high school. And what's the funny thing is, now in my position, I work for Twin Rivers Adult School as an academic intervention specialist, and I help people get their diplomas. Adults, right?
That's funny because I've been a high school educator for 15 years, 8 years.
Wow.
8 years in the classroom, 6, I can't do the math right now. But the rest of the time I've been a high school counselor, and I used to work also for like behavior schools, and then adult school, helping them come back to get their schools. And now I'm like in a little alternative program where if you drop out, you can come back and get your diploma.
Oh, I love it. That's my heart. So that's, I'm like, I took a sabbatical a couple of years ago. Well, I took a sabbatical in 2015 to take time out for my family and just to heal and recover from a couple of things. And when I went back, I said, I'm going to go back to the district. So I hopped on, and then they had the position available. Shout out to Tad Meyer. He hired me. He's my old boss. And I'm just it feels so good to be able to give back to the community every day, right? Because I really didn't have that when I was going through my stuff, you know. There were people that would try to help me and try to say, oh, you need your diploma, you need to do this, but none of them look like me. And so therefore, you know, I felt judged, right? And then I was like, I ain't dealing with you. And I had an attitude. So right, it wasn't no good. So I thank God for that service. But in that time before then, my mom had, and this is what I'm leading up to giving my life to the Lord. So my mom has a twin sister who moved to South Carolina. And my mom asked her if I could come live with them. She thought it would be a good environment for me because my aunt has been married for like 36 years. She had 2 children. She's like, you could go there, you could get yourself together, you know, but I'm like 14 at this time. I'm like, I don't want to go there. I don't want to live in South Carolina, and it's the 90s, and I think I'm a thug, so I don't want to go out there in the country. But that was the best decision that that my mom and my family could have ever made for me, because that's where I gave my life to the Lord. That's where I was drawn by the Holy Spirit on a Wednesday night service to give my life to the Lord, to say the sinner's prayer. Didn't really understand what all that was, but I'm so glad I did it because seeds started being planted. So when I was in South Carolina, I didn't end up staying because I was like, no, I have to get back to California. I'm West Coast all day, West Side down. I'm not going to be out here even after all that. But I started like working in the children's church. I started, I built some wonderful connections, and that's why I really gave my life to the Lord. And then fast forward, came back out to California, really didn't have the structure to go to church in my mom's household. So just was like, oh, you know, that's something that happened out there. Didn't really understand what I did. Didn't really understand that I was his daughter. No matter what happened in my life, I was going to be covered, but I didn't get that concept. So I gave my life to the Lord, but didn't have the structure, strategy, or even the process to know what I really did. Just knew that I was moved. And now as I got older, I know it was the Holy Spirit that moved me. And then when I came back to California, I still was getting in trouble. I still was thugging. I still was doing the most. I was hard-headed, right?
Right.
It was bad. It was really bad. So we fast forward. So I came back out here in 91. And then in 92, just really, really traumatic things started happening. I was in a drive-by shooting, a carjacking on a Sunday afternoon.
Oh, wow.
my homie and his friend. My homeboy ended up dying right in front of me, and his friend ended up getting shot in the front seat. They ended up putting the gun to my head, and this is 17, and it was just bad. And so in that space, not even then, still not realizing that God is in control, right? Like not having that concept, still not having that safe person to talk to, and going through that trauma on my own, basically, because by that time nobody wanted me around at their house. Nobody wanted their kids to hang around me. Like, she's damaged, she's bad, she's gonna, hey Keisha, that one, she's gonna end up in prison or she's gonna end up dead, y'all need to stay away from her. So that was the narrative, right? So then even three years after that, I'm chilling, I'm still drinking, kicking it, still haven't learned my lesson. I end up going to juvenile hall for attempted murder, robbery, and conspiracy. And it was at that point at 17, that's when the surrender took place. Inside of the juvenile hall jail cell on Kiefer Boulevard in Sacramento, California. And I say this to say, if anyone has children that are dealing with behavior problems or are going through this cycle where they come up and they go down, please be resourceful. Please don't judge them and condemn them. Pray for them and love on them, and see what you can do to be a resource for them. It was in that jail cell that I tried to take myself out the game. I was just like, hey, this is my life. They're talking about I'll be here until I'm 25 years old.
Wow.
I'm too cute to be here. I don't like the people. I'm a little nervous. I'm not as hard as I thought I was, right?
That goes out the window.
But that saved my life, though, because one of the counselors ended up walking by my cell, and she was like, oh, they called the code or whatever, and they ended up putting me in the infirmary and ended up putting me on a psychiatric watch, a 48-hour psychiatric watch in there, where they evaluated me, and then they identified that I had post-traumatic stress syndrome, because remember, the drive-by had just happened a couple of months prior. And in that space, the counselors there were so loving. There were 3 counselors that really touched my life and really let me know, like, you don't fit the criteria for being here. Like, go to high school in here, go to church, do what you need to do. So then I started going back to church in juvenile halls every Wednesday, every Sunday, became like an honor in there, and just really started looking at my surroundings and really realizing that I had given my life to the Lord. He had saved me. He had protected me in the drive-by shooting when the gun was to my head. My life had purpose. And it was in that space that I was like, hey, I'm going to get my diploma. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to do things in my life that are going to make a difference. And so I ended up sitting in juvenile hall for about 3 months. I got released and still came home and didn't do the right thing. Hard-headed.
You didn't listen. You
Right.
still didn't listen.
You know what I mean? And then I think what really sealed the deal for me was one of my cousins had gotten pregnant, and we were attending a church here and there, and they were going to do baptism Sunday. And I hadn't been baptized. So when we went up, and her being pregnant with my niece/goddaughter, and me seeing her pregnant and knowing that now there was going to be a different generation, there was going to be a different legacy, that's when things started to really like turn around in my mind. And that's when I remembered how my mom would tell me, even though she might not have modeled it in front of me, she would always tell me to pray. And so I would just pray. I pray as anything, like at the drop of the dime, I'd be like, oh, Jesus, please help, thank you, Jesus. And so that's when things like really started transforming. And, I just looked at my own life I think I was 18, maybe back then. And, with the birth of my niece coming, I was just like, I don't want to be like this, like for real. I want to go all in. I want to build that personal relationship with Christ. I want to be better and do better. And I'm not going to be able to be better and do better if I'm just walking on my own accord and thinking that I know everything, thinking that nothing can happen to me anymore. Like I've already been through enough, those little concepts that come up when you're not healthy. But it was definitely, that was a spark of it. And then when I actually got pregnant with my first daughter, she's 21 years old.
Oh,
And I have them 21, 13, 10, and 6. So
okay.
all girls,
Daughter.
yeah,
Yeah.
daughter, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And, just knowing that, I didn't want to be a messed up mommy. Just didn't want that.
I think we talked about this yesterday with Randy. Like kids will really put you in perspective really quick, like really quick. And and you were talking about that you were in the juveniles. I used to work for the boys, I guess boys jail here for a few summers. And it's
Mhm.
very interesting, like that you said that you say make sure to give them resources because in there, I always work with the boys. The girls had, I guess, their own prison somewhere else. Um, they're very candid. They'll tell you whatever you want to know. And some would tell them, like, my parents literally don't care. I can come home 4, 5, 6 in the morning. They don't care. They smoke weed with me too. They drink with me too. And you're like, but then you will hear those other stories that say, my mom and my dad did everything for me, and then I was the one that messed up, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And those tend to be more successful when they get released because they
yeah,
have that environment or foundations of I learned my lesson. Like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I had a few tell me like this is some of them. The ones that did not come from a good environment, they would be like, I'm going to go back to my home, which is their cell, right? And
hmm,
then the ones who were like, this is not home.
yeah,
This is a cell. I can't wait to get back home. Like hearing that door locked behind you, you at 16, 15, whatever, they're telling you what time you go to the bathroom. They're telling you what you're going to eat. Like I learned my lesson. When I'm out of here, I'm out of here. Like, so I see where that comes from because the ones who don't have that successful environment and
hmm.
committing more crimes again. And now when you're 18, well, in
Reset it.
Nevada,
Mhm.
you
Yeah,
get you get charged as an adult. So yeah.
yeah. And that was very like, so I really didn't have a real stable environment when I came home because my parents were on drugs and things like that. But
Mhm.
I was like determined. Thank God for my grandmother, rest in peace. We all lived at my grandma's house, and she she provided a loving shelter for us.
Mhm.
So the shelter was there. The structure may not have been there, but that was up to us. So then
Right.
when I got released, I was like, I really took ownership and responsibility on being the oldest cousin and sister and youth in the house. I wasn't the best example because I was still doing dirt, but I
Right.
was going to school every day. And I ended up getting my diploma because I went to like Saturday school, night school, days, anytime I could catch a credit, I was
Yeah.
catching me credit because it was already 94. I was supposed to graduate in 93. So I was already a year behind. And I had an auntie who was always in my ear saying, you got to get your diploma, girl. That was
Mhm.
my one of my one safe persons. You got to get your diploma. What you gonna do without a diploma? Da, 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 da. And so I remembered that, and I thank God for that push. Shout out, Auntie, you know who you are. I just remember that push, and I remember just wanting to not only please her, but to do something inside of myself to please myself because I had made a promise, right? I did make a promise to Christ to get my life back together when I got released. Lord, please get me out of this. And then more so when I got released, it was about me creating that safe space for myself. Does that make sense? And then in juvenile hall, I realized I have a gift. I had a gift. I have a gift of encouragement and the gift of prayer. And then that's when I moved forward and made a promise that I was going to help any youth that came in my path. Whatever I could do to help them, I was going to help them. So that's when I started going to I went to American River College out here. I graduated with my associates in liberal arts. Then I went to Sac State and graduated with a bachelor degree in criminal justice, and then made those moves. You know what I mean? Like the education, I always wanted to go to college, but never really thought I could. Graduating a year late and really not being very strong academically because I skipped school for a whole year, pretty much. So not really having that solid foundation as far as education goes, but moving forward in that fear and saying, I'm not going to let anything stop me, because by this time I was a single mommy with my firstborn. And I'm like, I want to provide a good life for her. I want to provide, give her things. And then eventually when I had other daughters, I still had my education. So when I graduated, it's like the middle of the recession, way back in 2004. And then I have all this student debt and I don't have a job, right? And then I'm pregnant at this point with my second daughter. So that was another. It's like every time something came in my life to try to discourage me or try to literally kill me, it was another opportunity for me to get closer to God. Does that make sense? So
makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So like leaning on him and focusing on, especially when I got older, like in my mid-20s, like making sure prayer was my lifestyle, making sure that devotions and gospel music, and just because I never really the church that I work at a church, and I've been a member of Antelope Upper Room Ministry for many years, and that was the first church I actually joined, because it was the first time I actually felt comfortable enough to sit and to learn without the judgment, right? Because I would go into churches and I'd say, oh, I can, da da da, and then because I have a spirit of discernment, so I'm just like, ooh, I don't know if I can stay here. I'm not strong enough to pray through this one. You know what I mean? But it's been a really powerful journey. Jesus is the head of my life. No one's perfect. I still fall short every single day, but I know the principles of repenting. I know the principles of unconditional love, practicing the fruits of the Spirit. And, that's what I really focus on in my life and demonstrate, being kind, being that one that even if things are going sideways, just staying faithful, because his word never returns back to us void, right? He promised us abundancy. And in that, when I did join Antelope Upper Room, I started directing the youth ministry, because that was my passion, because my career was with youth, and just really pouring in. And I said, you know what? The more I study and teach these lessons, the more I'm learning, And so it's just been a real honor. It's nothing better than when a youth, or even because I do work with a lot of women, and they come back and they say, you're the reason, and I'm like, God's the reason. They're like, no, but you did da 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 da. Excuse me. And I'm like, that's the obedience, you guys. Yeah. That's what happens when one person says yes, to dying out to self, to live for Christ. This is the outcome, to be the change, not just say I want to be the change, but actually be the change.
And I can relate with that, because like I said, I'm a high school counselor. I've been doing it for 5, 6, 7 years. And wow. Yeah, and then a high school teacher for 8 years. So I was in the classroom, and like you were saying, some of them, especially the schools that I used to work at, they cannot see themselves beyond not even a high school diploma, because it was never really, they never seen modeled in their home. Yeah. So you tell them like it is obtainable, like you can get a high school diploma, and to them it's like, I remember one specific student. He was the first, I think, he was a boy, but the first, oldest of the bunch, and he really wanted to do something. And for him, it was just so difficult. I was like, look, you just have to break it down. And I was able to relate to a lot of them, because I was first generation Mexican American going to school. Because like you were saying, when I was going to community college, there was really nobody of my skin color, like to really help me. And I'm like, well, I mean, eventually I found other people like me, but coming in, you're like, am I like the only Mexican person here? But so when I would talk to my high school students, it's like, look, I understand what you're going through, because I went through the same thing. but everything requires steps. Like going to community college is all steps. What is it that you want to do? I had another girl recently who she was like, oh my God, going to community college is so difficult. I was like, you need to breathe, bring it down like 10 notches.
For
Everything
real.
is a step, like
Yep.
relax, you know. So
Yep.
she eventually graduated, but
Yay.
yeah, I was so excited because she was like this close to be like, not like, no, girl, you taking your last class. Like, I need you
Yeah.
to be here tomorrow. That's what I need
Yeah.
you
I
to do.
need you to get this done. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So I can relate to when you see like they don't see beyond that, especially when it hasn't been modeled in their household.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, anything is possible, right?
Right. Anything.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for me, I think so. I was so comfortable like at American River, right? Because they had so many resources for single moms back then. But when I got to Sac State, and then I was a criminal justice major, so I'm sitting in class like 25 years old, only African American female, and in the books it's telling us that the primary suspect, the reasonable suspect, is an African American, Hispanic, or colored male between the ages of 15 and 35. And so then I'm offended off top,
Right.
right? So I'm like,
wait. Did you
wait, I like,
forget what we did?
yeah, what you talking about? So then being in those kind of spaces, I was just like, I really had to lean on Jesus then, because I was like, this is ridiculous that this is in the textbooks. We are teaching biasism and racism, and nobody's saying nothing. And then I'm in there enraged, like wanting to. I wrote a letter to the department head, like, you need to change these textbooks. I'm like going off, but then I had to figure out a way to channel that, and that's why I didn't. I had an opportunity to work in juvenile hall in Sacramento, and to be honest, that was a huge trigger for me when I did go through for the walkthrough. It was too much. It reminded me too much of me being there. So I shifted gears to after school education. I used to be a after school program coordinator / supervisor for like 6-7 years for the city of Sacramento. And in that space, having my own program in that space, I was able to impact the families. I mean, me and my team, we were doing family nights. We're bringing domestic violence awareness to the school system. We're bringing in motorcycle clubs. My brother's the president of one. Shout out to my bro. Just with cars and just getting things that will get the kids' attention, right? And then bringing in those mentors to tell them, hey, you're in the 6th grade. You can do this. What sports are you playing? What are you into? Like modeling to them, because they weren't seeing it at home, because it was a really, it was a Title I school. So you already know, so just simple things like food, like they're coming to school to eat food, and us coming in when we could before the COVID and all the other stuff happened. We do potlucks. We would have a monthly, just so many things to help them and encourage them, affirm them. So that was a ministry too, because I prayed with my team. We prayed, people gave their lives to the Lord on campus, parents. I'm like, separation between school and what? Nobody's complaining,
Well, sometimes even pray for patience, because
right.
teenagers will test you.
Yeah, they sure will. And then when I have first got out of college, I worked at Grant High School in Sacramento, and so I was a public safety officer, the only female public safety officer. But I must say that they respected me, because I respected them and I valued them, and I really believe that the children, the youth, are our futures, and if we impact them, if we model, so you would see people who say, "Oh, I'm a this, I'm a that" in church, right? Then you get them to get them in front of the kids, and they act in a whole different way, right? So I'm like, so modeling who Christ is in front of them, in front of people in general, like being that, like you said, praying for patience, so you're not going off, because you could turn somebody off that's a new believer you
Yeah.
could turn them off by reacting to them in a certain way. And they'll be like, because I know that's how I was like, oh, you say you're loving the Lord and doing this, but you out here, huh? So just be keeping it real,
Yes, let's keep it real, real,
Yeah,
1,000%. I mean,
100. So yeah, that's my testimony. So now as I stand, I have a beautiful, thank God for my life now. Thank God. I thank God every single morning. I'm not even playing. I'm like, thank you, Jesus. I don't look like what I've been through. Thank you, Jesus. I'm not in my right mind. I'm not in a mental institution. I'm not in prison, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. You know what I'm
thank
saying? Like,
you. Wow.
thank you that I have a career, that I've just relaunched my coaching empowerment business, Keys to Victory Coaching Empowerment Institute, where I do one-on-one not counseling, but coaching, because I'm a certified life coach. And I'm
Nice.
just doing, God has just gifted me with some amazing things to put into the community to serve and honor others in spite of the things that I've been through. I thank God for all of that, because it really allowed Romans 8:28. All things work according for the good of those who love the Lord, that are called according to his purpose. And that is exactly what happened to me, what has happened to me. And I'm just excited about the journey. Just really excited.
And what I like that, especially now, I feel like, and I was saying this yesterday too, is like, I feel more now more than ever, especially with COVID and everything, like people are seeking for that closeness, or they're lost, or
Yeah.
they're leaving. So they're seeking for something more. And obviously, to fill in that void, they do everything, because we all do everything, but seek God,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So then let's even talk about going further in when I got married, because I've been married for 15, I think 15, almost 15 years. And in that, going through some really serious obstacles and trials that made me get on my knees all over again. And then getting on my knees, and then it getting even going, like even getting closer to Christ, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because now I'm learning about the principles of forgiveness, and the principles of healing, and the principles of, you know what I mean, pressing through no matter what it looks like, trusting God, staying focused. So I
Yeah.
really just want to say, I might be getting ahead of ourselves with the questions, but what I would really like to leave here for women is, no matter what you're dealing with in your everyday life, don't cut God out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, just don't, make sure, no matter who's saying this and that about whatever you are, make sure you're praying, praising, and giving him the glory. Because what the enemy does is he tries to, because we're visual people, right? He tries to put us the blinders, like, oh yeah, well, if Jesus loved you this much, da 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 da. I'm like,
That's true, but it's true, and
yeah.
we all kind of let those negative thoughts kind of take us there.
Yeah. And then we're sitting around knowing we have power, right? Believers' authority, knowing that he has gifted us and called us and, gave us amazing, amazing assignments in the world. But then we listening to that one,
Yeah.
because because we're not taught. So I really thank God for the teachings of trusting God no matter what it looks like, trusting him, putting your faith forward, and just knowing, yeah, you might be down. Like I said, I was on my knees for almost 2 years, just crying out to God, just saying, thank you, Lord, bring me out of this. Help me, Lord, just help me be better, Jesus. You know what I mean? Help me do what you want me to do, even when it's hard.
Yeah.
In my pregnancies, my last two pregnancies, I worked 2 jobs. I worked from 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night.
Oh,
And
wow.
you know what? I'm telling you, if I tell you this, my last 2 daughters are the most determined kids that I have, because in my space during that time, I was determined, right? So
Mhm.
when I stopped being a public safety officer, I was a paraeducator, and then I was doing after school programming, because that's when it was only part-time, but I loved it so much I didn't want to give it up, right? So in those spaces, leaning on God during
Yeah.
that time, in 2013 when we lost my grandmother, I was like my mom. I was pregnant with my last baby. My grandmother didn't get to meet her,
Oh,
but even in that space, like being that rock and praying and not giving up, and mourning and owning that grief and mourning is different for everyone. It's
Yeah.
not going to be the same for people. So
Mhm.
my advice is, no matter what you are going through, if you went through the molestation, forgive the molester. Forgive the abuser. Any domestic violence, intimate partner violence, do not be bound by
Yeah.
the abuse tactics of a person who is going through hate themselves, because hurting people hurt other people. So
Mhm.
many abusers are what? They've been abused in life,
Yeah.
so they don't know how to love in the right way. But
Right.
don't take it personal, because it's a trick and it's an attack, so the enemy can get you from not doing what you need to do in your life.
That
So
is
that's what I would give. Yeah.
That is very true. If the enemy can find a thing to keep you, like you say, bounded, and just, I always feel like somewhere in the corner, weeping and crying, like
Mm-hmm.
he's fulfilled his mission. Like, let me go on to the next victim, because
Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that person, he or she or whomever, whatever, they're too busy crying and not forgiving and moving on. Like, they're gonna be stuck there forever. So moving on to the next person. But yeah.
Yeah. And in that, I'm big. My book is called Keys to Victory Presents Broken, a Woman's Journey to Healing and Forgiveness. And I'm really like, that's my thing. Forgiveness. I didn't know about forgiveness even. Did you? I didn't know
No,
about it.
no, I didn't. I didn't know about forgiveness till about, I want to say, 2 years ago, and even then I kept an attitude with God. I was like, why should I forgive him? I'm not the one that did anything wrong.
Right, Grace. No, I'm serious. When I found out the freedom and the power and
Yeah,
the joy and the peace that surpasses all man's understanding,
yeah,
and I was like, oh yeah, this is my lifestyle, because I'm not being a doormat. I'm not being someone who's letting people take advantage, but what I am doing is modeling Christ-like behavior. Right? We have role models. I say Jesus is my number one role model, you
right.
know? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we can go into forgiveness, because I'm telling you, I was like, I'm not forgiving nobody. They did it to me, so they can go and forgive me first, and then we can go from there. God's like, no, that's not how it works. That's
Okay.
not how it works. I
So,
know my friend is up already too. All right,
so
question number 2.
Grace, next time, can you answer it, baby? Oh, yeah. Mhm. Oh,
Okay, question number
what are
2.
some
What are
important
some of
things to do as a
Yeah.
Christian woman? Sorry.
No, go ahead. No,
So,
what
what
are
are
some important
some of
things
the
to do?
important to do as a Christian? Like I just role modeling. I think
Mhm.
modeling Christ-like behavior in your household first, and then in your community, and then really modeling it for your intimate family, right? Your
Mhm.
family inside your household.
Yeah.
Because I had got caught in doing. And then I'm glad that I got a whiff of it in the spirit, because God say, you take care of your household. You know what I mean? I had to make sure that I was taking care of my responsibilities in the home
Mhm.
before going out in the community to serve.
Yeah.
So I think role modeling and setting great priorities, and also creating a circle of sister friends
Mhm.
who
Yeah.
will not judge you,
Right.
who will love on you and support you, who you can be your true you in front of. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Um, and keeping things confidential. I
Mhm.
think that when individuals are hurting or they're in need and they're seeking Christ, and they lean on people for prayer or lean on people for counsel, I really truly believe, as women and Christian women, we need to keep those things to Christ, like, and love on them. I
Yeah.
think, and the number one thing is show the love of God. Be the
Yeah.
light. You know what I'm saying? Be
Yeah.
the light. So that's what I think
Yeah.
those are one of the most important things.
And I
And
think most
I,
women, go ahead.
yeah,
No, I was
I
gonna
was
say,
gonna,
go ahead.
oh, and submit. You
Mhm.
see how hard that was for me to say?
Oh, I thought you were breaking up.
Submit. Break it up. Um, if you're married, or if you are in a relation, in that union, to
Mhm.
be submissive, to submit, and to honor your husband,
Yeah.
honor him. And if he is not saved, and it's not a violent situation, pray for him and forgive him.
Yeah.
I really think that's really important to say.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why.
Submit. It's not hard for me to say. I heard you kind of was hard for you, but
well, it was hard for me.
I don't know. It was hard for me even to learn that lesson too. I was like, I'm not submitting to no man. How dare you? But you know, I always say this because I read the book with Derek Prince, Marriage Covenant. If you read that book, a lot of marriage is really submitting, surrendering, and dying to yourself for another person. If you're not ready to do that, you better just move on, go about your single life, because marriage is work, right? It's work, and it's always great if both are seeking God and we are both equally yoked. It becomes a little bit easier. I'm not saying it's the easiest thing, but I think
Right.
And I like that you said a lot of the women are saying the same thing, like really find yourself like-minded Christian women to, you know, to get together or even to talk, because that again is very important when you have a world full of things that are good look bad and things that are bad look good, and they will, you know, try to veer you the wrong way.
Yes, I definitely, in this time, in this COVID season, you know, when it first happened, the first week, I was like really in a really difficult space. I wouldn't say dark, but I was just really in a space to where like, what is going on? There's no food on the shelves, you know. And then when I really just was like, Lord, reveal, help me, you know. And he was like, you just need to pray. That's all. You need to find you some friends and pray.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And he was like, no, see, even submitted over to Christ. You see, I'm a little stubborn still. That's what I work on every single day. So
I think it's everybody though.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, because and everybody's saying the same thing. It's a work in progress every single day. You know, it's not like you get saved and everything's peaches and rainbows and cupcakes. It's not. It's continuing to learn. And whenever we are going through those dips, there's a lesson. Like one of the girls was saying yesterday, it's a lesson to learn, so then you come up back on top. So we may not, but we have to learn. All right, and then to end the interview real quick.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, what are some of your favorite Bible verses?
So my absolute favorite Bible verse is Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. That scripture was spoken over my life about 10 years ago.
Wow.
And I didn't even understand it. One of a coworker of mine, he was a pastor, and he would always see me, because I love to journal. He would always see me writing in a notebook, and he always say, Smitty, what you doing? What you doing? Right? I'm journaling. Leave me alone, like, because you know I'm focused. I want to journal.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because one day I was so irritated because he called me on the walkie and I was journaling right during my break. Like, I want to journal. And he came he said, come on here, I gotta show you something. I was like, oh my God, what? I'm tired. Leave me alone.
Break.
Yeah, I'm on break. And I want to journal. And he gave me this beautiful leather-bound, gold trim journal. And he wrote Jeremiah 29:11 in there. And he said, it's something special about you. You're going places. And I said, oh, okay. And then I was like, ooh, forgive me, Jesus, for being so irritated that he wanted to give me a Bible verse like that. So, yeah. And I love.
If you were going to give me a notebook, I would have been happier.
Right. I would have known I would have known the outcome. But my favorite book though in the Bible is Proverbs. And I'm gonna say something, and this will be a kicker to end the interview. Even in my thugged out days, I would listen to E40, right? And in one of his songs, he said, when you're feeling down and out, read Proverbs. And I said, ooh, I'm gonna read Proverbs. This was like when I was about 17. Yeah. And then I read the book of Proverbs, like I would read it continuously. But then when I was visiting a church, the pastor said you should read a proverb a day because there's 31 proverbs, and then you should couple it with about 5 or 6 psalms. And then I started reading the book of Proverbs, and I started really committing that book into my spirit, into my inner man. You know, the quarreling, the being kind to your fellow man. Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord, lean not on your own understanding. That's one of my most favorite verses. But I would say that whole book just spoke life unto me.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah.
it's so funny that you said that, because a couple of days ago I started. So what's the day? Today's like what, the third? What day is it? The 28th. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
28th. So then I'll go to Proverbs 28 and read that.
Yes.
Tomorrow,
Yes.
29, I'll read that. The
Mm-hmm.
last one I read was, which is so funny, but probably not, but it was, what was it? The 26, and it was really talking about don't argue with fools and and lazy people.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't engage. Don't engage.
Don't engage, because they're trying to get you out of your place. But it is what.
Yeah, believe me.
Oh
I
yeah.
get that one. I really get that one. Yeah,
And I was
don't
like,
do
why
it.
am I reading this one on this day? But so she's saying, as well as I'm saying, definitely, if you're trying to get it back into the word, for each day, there's 31. Pick the day of the calendar, and then go to Proverbs and definitely pair it up with something else. But thank you so much for coming on here today and
Oh,
sharing.
you are so welcome. It's been such a pleasure. God bless your ministry, honey, and keep up the good work. It's a
Thank
pleasure
you.
to meet you.
Thank
Keep in
you.
contact with Sister Grace.
Definitely. Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.